Welcome to week 2, lesson 2. After the first micro lecture, I'm sure that you've gotten a better understanding of the concept of risk and vulnerability within the supply chain. We're going to now expand our exploration of risk into more strategic elements and specifically address how organizations can begin to build the capacity to mitigate risks. The important thing to remember is that risk itself can very rarely be removed from a supply chain. The two are closely linked. Any type of global, regional, or even local operation will be susceptible to any degree of risk, any varying degree of risk. It's important that we accept that fact, but also that we make a concerted effort to put in place measures that allow us to mitigate such risks should they occur. And 9 out of 10 times you will find that such risk events will occur. So we're going to talk about the first concept of robustness. Now, when you're trying to mitigate against risk, most companies go the route of first building robustness into the supply chain. Now, what is robustness? I mean, as a concept, it means that you are able to deal with the little changes, with normal fluctuations that may happen under normal operating conditions. So, any everyday sort of event, for example, an employee being off sick, there's a way in which you would manage that. It's something that you have come to expect. It is nothing out of the ordinary. So, robust supply chain strategies allow a firm to manage and operate under normal conditions, so regular fluctuations. A robust strategy is the first step in building a resilient organization. But it's important that we understand that whilst it has a lot going for it, robustness does not equal resilience. Resilience is a higher level function. Resilience is the ability of a system to return to its original state after a massive disruption. For example, COVID, undoubtedly one of the biggest disruptions that we would experience, hopefully, in our lifetime. But the mark of resilient organizations was their ability to return to operations despite the poor operating conditions, despite the restrictions. So we have to consider risk and resilience in a supply chain from a system perspective. If we want to build in resilience, look at your supply chain as a system, end to end, not just yourself as the focal point or a node or a partner in the supply chain. We need to accept that disturbances and risk events can happen. And the implication here is that if we want to be resilient, we need to start being adaptable and flexible. Flexibility, adaptability, and agility are the first clear steps in building a resilient organization. The resilient supply chain, therefore, is a function of agility and robustness. And underneath agility and robustness, we've got to build in redundancy, for example, safety stock, a distribution center in a different part of the world that, for example, is not susceptible to natural disasters. You have to build in on the agility side, responsiveness and flexibility. All of these are key factors, key success factors. Flexibility, responsiveness, and redundancy are key success factors in achieving the goal of resilience. And how we do that is by applying agility and robustness to the application of these design approaches. So when we come to supply chain risk management, it is a supply chain effort. It will fall flat if it is marginalized. It will fall flat if implemented in a silo. It will fall flat if it's implemented by one partner in the absence of everyone else. It's about increasing visibility through information sharing. It's about increasing flexibility, building in the ability to postpone or delay differentiation, a concept you should be familiar with, having multiple sourcing and flexible contracts, and building in redundancy, either through vendor managed inventory, strategic stock, or competitive manufacturing intelligence. So it requires careful joint planning and coordination. It is, of course, a difficult undertaking, but the rewards are there. Therefore, In these changing and uncertain times, the known problems are just part of the picture. I mean, there may be things, risk events that we could be potentially aware of. So we could have known unknowns, knowable unknowns, so risks that we could uncover if we did some sort of market research, knowable unknowns, right? Market research, unknowable unknowns are things that we would definitely not know and never know, like the COVID-19 pandemic. And such risk events may often take the shape or form of what we could call a creeping crisis. A creeping crisis is a crisis or risk event that starts off in one part of the world, one part of the supply chain, but later filters down to influence and impact everybody in every industry across the globe or across a particular region. That's a creeping crisis. So you have to accept the fact that you may not always have perfect information. Having limited information and imperfect information is part and parcel of the risk management process. But you have to do your research. You have to keep your finger on the pulse and understand what is going on in the operating world around you. So modern industrial organization is characterized by this growing complexity. I mean, everything from outsourcing to lean manufacturing to just in time and the rise of consumerism in this information age has increased complexity. And this increased complexity has directly increased uncertainty as well as the probability and propensity and impact of risk. Therefore, you have to be proactive in how you go about identifying and mitigating risk to ensure that it has the lowest potential impact on your supply chain. So, when it comes to managing risk, we have to look at the levels of interconnection and interdependence in organizations. Remember, as companies grow, as supply chains expand, it adds a layer of complexity. You become more susceptible to changing conditions. You become more susceptible to certain risk events. So, therefore, risk management has become a crucial function for supply chain managers. And as we've seen in the modern economy, there's always a degree of risk. This brings me to the end of our micro lecture for week 2, lesson 2. I hope that at the end of this week, you've gained a better appreciation of risk management as well as the strategies that can be applied to ensure sound risk management within organizations. Thank you very much, and I will see you all in the next micro lecture.